Welcome, everyone. My name is Gary Leonard. I use he, him pronouns. I am the impact lead for ADOC Activate. I am a Southeast Asian man with dark hair, wearing a white button-up shirt, and I am joining you all from the unceded and traditional territory of the Munsee Lenape and Canarsie people, also known as Brooklyn, New York. Again, I just want to welcome everyone into this space. Thank you all so much for being here, for your interest in ADOC and ADOC Activate. Before we jump into today's conversation, please do continue to say hello into the chat. We'd love to know who we are in community with today. And before we get started, I do want to give a bit of an overview of ADOC Activate. ADOC Activate is a new initiative here at ADOC. It's a 2-year initiative supporting independent documentary filmmakers in developing, distributing, and building impact for microdocumentary projects, with the intention to be able to advance solidarity and power within AAPI communities. This initiative is built on the work of storytelling and impact initiatives at ADOC with 3 thematic areas critical to ADOC's mission and broader AAPI communities. Those specific themes are movement building and solidarity, defining family, community, and self, and then lastly, AAPI history makers. To kick off Activates as part of this 2-year initiative, we're hosting a 4-part educational series that's open to both ADOC members as well as the broader community. These sessions are designed to support filmmakers who are exploring impact strategy, digital audience engagement, and short form storytelling, while also offering a window into the values and approaches that shape the overall initiative itself. And if you are someone here joining today and you're interested in one of our upcoming Activates open calls, we really do encourage you to be here in this space. We encourage you to go back and re-watch past sessions. We plan to launch our first opportunity, Microdocs Past Tense, which is supporting the creation of new short form work adapted from previously released films, followed by present tense, supporting entirely new microdocs. And we hope the conversations are able to provide practical tools as well as inspiration as you are thinking about how you might connect with this initiative. Across the series, we've been able to explore aspects of filmmaking and impact, from impact visioning to digital audience engagement to today's conversation focused on microdocumentary inception and short form storytelling. And then we're going to wrap the series on July 29th with our final session centered around digital shorts cut down lab. So we'll spend about 35 to 40 minutes in conversation today before we open it up to a Q&A that will invite you all here to ask questions. And so feel free to use the chat feature. Feel free to use the Q&A feature if you have questions. And just as a reminder, this webinar will be recorded and will be made available later on ADOC's YouTube channel. And with that, I would love to go ahead and hand the mic over to Lily, who will be today's moderator and is going to kick off today's session.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lily Chi, and I am one of the co-leads for the Storytelling Initiative here at ADOC, and I am also part of the ADOC Activates team. I am an East Asian woman with short dark hair, and I'm wearing an orange shirt. I am calling from the traditional homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi, also known as Chicago. For everyone who's joining the webinar today, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and also ask questions in there. And also, you can also use the Q&A function for the webinar. Our panel today is on microdoc inception and short form storytelling, and I'm very excited to welcome our 3 panelists who have participated in our previous microdoc series. First, we have Valerie So. Her film Sewing in the Time of a Coronavirus was part of our first microdoc series in 2020. Valerie is a filmmaker, writer, and artist who has directed more than 24 experimental videos and short documentaries, and whose work has won awards and exhibited at venues worldwide. Her feature documentary, The Anti-Sewing Squad Resistance Playbook, premiered in May 2026. She is a professor in the Asian American Studies Department at San Francisco State University. Welcome, Valerie. And our second panelist is Priyanka Surinani. Priyanka's film, Serving Before Self, was part of a 2021 Resilience series. Priyanka is an Asian origin media entrepreneur, documentarian, and visual storyteller based in Fremont, California. Her work amplifies Bay Area and South Asian stories of immigration, identity, resistance, and community across 5 languages. Our third panelist is Sonia Desai Reka, whose film Ohio is in the Heart was part of our 2024 Microdoc series. Based in Brooklyn by way of Ohio, Sonia Desai Reka is a documentary filmmaker and cultural worker whose body of work interrogates the embodied consequences of borders and how, despite threats to our worlds, joy persists. So welcome, our panelists. We have about 35 to 40 minutes today to really dive into micro documentaries and everyone's individual experience with this format. So to kick us off, I would like to invite each of you to maybe briefly talk about your own microdoc and where you were when you set out to make the film. So first, what your film is about and what prompted you to make the film at the time. And maybe we can start with Valerie and then Priyanka, then Sonia.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm I have short hair, Asian woman, East Asian woman. I have red glasses on and a purple T-shirt, and I am calling in from Ramaytush Ohlone land, also known as the San Francisco Bay Area. Um, so I made this film way back in 2020 when we were all in lockdown during the COVID pandemic, and it's all about the Auntie Sewing Squad and what we did at that time. And it was a really great way for me to sort of keep my hand in while we were all locked in our houses, right? Because I feel like it was impossible to do any production in the regular way. So it was nice to have this chance to do just a little smaller piece that reminded me that I could still make films.
And how about you, Priyanka?
Yeah, thank you for having me as well. And my name is Priyanka. I am a South Asian woman with shoulder length hair. I am wearing really big red glasses and a white shirt. So to answer your question, Lily, I was my film is about it's called Service Before Self. It is about an individual who lost his restaurant during COVID, and he comes from the Sikh community, so he took to the Sikh values of selfless service during COVID, and how that journey helped him actually find fulfillment and employment. So that's kind of what the film explores. I had just moved to the United States in 2019. I had put away doing my master's for a very long time, and what a year to choose to come to the United States. I moved here in 2019, and then that was like 9 months before the pandemic. So I ended up like being stuck without a lot of community. I was sort of like I just graduated, kind of like figuring out how to kind of like navigate this journey. That's when I saw the call, ADOC call. And by this time, I had like done something else in the Fremont Gurudwara, the Sikh temple, and I was kind of like wanting to see how to tell the story. And then, when I saw the call, like I was kind of like this idea was in my mind, so it seemed like the perfect story to pitch. Yeah, so that's how the film came to be.
Yeah, thank you. Sonia, you're part of our latest iteration. How did you find microdoc and your
Yeah.
film?
So my name is Sonia. I am a South Asian woman with long dark hair and a denim shirt on. And I was a part of the 2024 Our Stories, Our Voices series. This, for context, Ohio is in the Heart is about a mother and a daughter advocating for more inclusive social studies curriculum in Ohio, which is where I'm from. I met the organization members when I was living in Columbus, and this opportunity to film with them just felt really aligned with the particular political moment I was in personally, because it was the beginning of 2024, and I think I was feeling really disillusioned with not just electoral politics in light of the genocide in Gaza, but also documentary and like trying to figure out the utility of documentary. And so seeing the open call for the microdocs was this opportunity to think, okay, like what's my base? Like, why do I want to make films and documentary? And what can I do then with this very limited form of, 3 minutes or less? And so I reached out to some of the organizers I knew in Ohio. I got connected with Rosie and Lisa pretty quickly, and yeah, that was the origin of it.
Thank you all for sharing. I think it's very interesting to see that even though it's at different time periods, different years that you made the microdoc, but it's sort of all under this energy that you want to create something and want to find community through storytelling. So I think it's very unique to see how microdocs bring you together in that way. I'm very curious about your experience with working with the format. We define microdocs as films that are under 3 minutes. And that usually comes with a lot of constraints such as production timeline and budget. I just wonder if you could share a bit more about your own experience working on your film and if there are any significant differences working in microdocs compared to other works you have done, either in length or story-wise. Priyanka, for your film Service Before Self, what was the production and pre-production process like? Anything you did in particular to prepare yourself to make the microdoc?
Yeah, I was at this point, I was kind of like new to the world of documentaries, and I'd done like some student projects, but it was still like longer projects. So 3 minutes was certainly like a new format and a new challenge for me. And like I said, I'd been filming at the temple, or I'd been going to the temple and I'd been exploring the story. So there was definitely like a lot of thought that went into it. Because we had like limited budget, and I was working with a crew, I had a cinematographer and I had an editor, so I had to be very mindful about the amount of hours, whether we were filming or the editing hours, I had to be very mindful of that. And I think it was a great challenge because with documentaries, a lot of the times, I think like the standard approach is, let's just keep filming and see what comes of it. I mean, even though you're intentional, I think we have a tendency to film a lot. So with this, I think to kind of like be a lot more intentional, it sort of like helped me bring a sort of certain kind of discipline into my documentary work as well. Yeah, so there was a lot of thought that went into it, a lot of pre-production. So I was very mindful and intentional about like the scenes we wanted to film. So this individual was running a food truck, so it was no brainer that we would follow him at his work. And the second day was we would also like cover some of his personal life because that also was impacted. So kind of like seeing the present and like him, and then covered his interview talking about the past. So that's loosely what the process was like for my film.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And Valerie, for your film, you filmed everything during lockdown, and that's the peak of 20 coronavirus.
Right.
And yeah, and then your film is mostly about you and made with your
Yeah.
narration. How did you make that decision what to include in the film and what not to?
So yeah, I think I made this movie in June, possibly even May of 2020. And so really we were all still very much stuck in our houses at that point. And I know that ADOC was looking for a proof of concept for this series that they were thinking of doing for Microdocs. So they contacted me and asked me if I could do something about getting conference lanyards and making them part of the masks, film festival and conference lanyards. And especially one of the people who was working with ADOC closely back then was Grace Lee. And she had sent me a huge bag of like giant FedEx envelope full of them, which that shot is in the film. So you'll see she had like probably like 50 conference lanyards that she sent me in the festival lanyards. So, but I do have to say, working with short form, just like Pranka said, is really, it takes a lot of discipline because you don't have that ability, you don't have that luxury of just like, oh, we'll just go where the story takes us, right? You have to really kind of make your point very clearly in that short amount of time. And so I think that it's very challenging in a lot of ways. So I think that for me, it was really, again, it was a really great exercise to do. At the same time, back then, I was probably too distracted to do a longer piece because I was trying to figure out what I was going to do in my house, or stuck in my house all that time, worrying about COVID and all that. So for me, it was really a really great little project to do. So I appreciate that I had the chance to do that.
Yeah, I think it's like it's actually surprising to hear from previous series participants how the short form or like such a the microdocs provides a unique opportunity to explore the creative side of things. And
Yeah.
I think for Sonia, your film is you also had a really short production period. How did you approach? I wonder if you can share a bit more about how you approach production, relationship building, you had to put the film together in a very short amount of time. Is there anything you can share about your production as well?
Yeah. So I ended up filming in Ohio for just a weekend. It was going to be the full weekend, and then end up really just being like 3 or 4 hours is what the short doc ended up being be from, or what it was from. Which is so like exactly what Priyanka said. I in any other project I've done have been like, oh, like maybe I can keep filming, or like you kind of always push yourself like in whatever process it is, like in the production, you're like, I can maybe film more, or like in the edit, you're like, maybe I need to keep working on it. But this exactly to what Valerie and Priyanka have already touched on, like this just pushed you in the right direction as a filmmaker and as an artist to be like, okay, I just have to make decisions and I have to trust where the decisions take me. And so I filmed with Rosie and Lisa, yeah, just like in the morning, and we had never met in person, but we had a few calls beforehand. And I think that was maybe what I was the most concerned about going in is I find like in my practice, it's just been really important to build those relationships first and just establish a camaraderie or like just like an understanding of what I'm even doing. And so to do that in a short and like a very tight timeline was new and yeah, I think I was the most concerned about that. And so I really tried to build in time in that morning to, get us all like acclimated. And luckily, Rosie and Lisa were just like really keen to share their stories, and they knew they had been doing this in small ways, right? Like throughout their organizing while organizing for this specific cause. So it wasn't new to them, but it was really fun. It ultimately like became like a fun thing for us to do. Like I gave Rosie the camera and then they were interviewing each other, and it then allowed for some of the magic that you have to rely on when you have such limitations. You're just dependent on some magical moments to occur.
Yeah, thank you. That's such I think all of you share something really beautiful about, and also I think it's um, a common feedback that we got for the series that the form, it seems easy, right? You just need to make a 3-minute film, but it's actually very challenging when you're trying to execute the idea. So we talked a little bit about like pre-production and production, and I actually want to dive a little more into the post-production and story process of microdocs. What I'm interested in hearing a little more about your process of condensing the story into 3 minutes. At what point do you feel like, okay, this film is done. I am okay with the film with where it is now, and I can call it picture lock. Is there any helpful advice you could share with those who I saw there people in the chat saying that they're looking for advice to become a director and making films? Any advice you would share with those who are looking to make microdocs that you can share from your experience working in this format? And anyone who wants to jump in, feel free to.
Um, I I think I think because you're so intentional, at least in my case, because I was so intentional with the filming. And that's kind of like, because with a slightly long form story, you're also like you probably have like a few different scenes and you're like trying to find the story in the edit. And the process for this was slightly different in the sense that I think, I ended up using almost 1:2, 1:3 ratio of footage that we filmed because we filmed for a few hours, like filmed over 2 days, a few hours each day, right? So it's still a lot of footage. Like, I still ended up with like an hour of footage. So I'm still condensing it to 3 minutes. So I think it was pretty much like just trying the story exploration part was okay, we did go in with a beginning, middle, and end sort of like in mind, but sort of like now, now that we have this footage, kind of like trying to see what's a good opening scene and what's a good conclusion. I think that's sort of like how we try to map it out and like see how the rest of it fits in between, kind of like trying to find a starting point and an ending point. So yeah, so I think it was sort of like just like trying to explore the limited material and trying to like sort of like find that, at least in the rough cut, find that structure, like story arc. And I think like once there's that through line and it's kind of like flowing, that's when you sort of like know that the story, like you found the story, and that's sort of, I think like somebody said, you just abandon films. You never really finish your films.
Yeah. And Valerie, were you trying to share something?
Sure, I can talk to my process. So in this particular film, it was a personal documentary that I wrote from a script that I wrote, like about my experience. So I was shooting, more or less, wrote it first, and then I looked for images to match. So it wasn't verite style at all. And I find that for this particular case, it was, again, because we were all really isolated in our houses, right, all sheltering in place, it worked out. And if you look at it, you'll see it's all pretty much shot in my house, in my living room, on my, in my dining room table. So, um, but in that case, I probably did, I really worked on the script first and made sure the voiceover was really tight. And then that was kind of the basis for the structure of the editing. So once I knew what I wanted to use, or what kind of images I needed to fill in, to illustrate, or to complement the voiceover, then I could just, it was pretty quick to edit from there in this particular case.
Yeah. I think I hear like Priyanka, it's a lot about intentional production to help with the process. And I think Valerie, it's really about scripting because of the unique format that you were making your film with. Sonia, do you have anything you want to share about how post-production looked like for you?
Yeah, I think for me, I originally felt like I had this idea in my mind it was gonna be verite going in, and then when I shot just the interview, I was like, and I remember even in the moment like trying to shoot some things around there, like with them in the house, and it just even like when I was filming it, it just didn't feel right. And then when I was in the edit, I was like, oh, of course, like I want to use like archival. I want to use them actually te her testifying and like photos of her grandparents. And I come from an archival background, like that's my day job. And so what I'm also hearing from Priyanka and Valerie is like it's really cool. I think the opportunity that we've all gotten in our respective ways to lean on a strength maybe we already have, whether that's like writing a script or Priyanka like working with verite footage or me with archival, like I think this experience just like it like required you to really know like to lean on something maybe unintentionally that you have as a strength, right? And it shows in these projects, which I think is so beautiful. So that's I guess something I would not encourage, like what's the word? Maybe yeah, maybe encourage. Like if you're trying to like do that is like there's probably something you're already gravitating toward, like a form of storytelling in particular that you are probably very interested in, and lean on that when you are at those like obstacles of when you're faced with an obstacle of trying to finish an edit, like just think, have I guess like have I yeah, like exercise these strengths that I think I have. And if not, maybe that's the way to assess if you want to do more. But I agree with I think what Priyanka said, like you do just kind of abandon like it's not abandonment, but it's like you do just kind of have to decide like, okay, I think as it is, like this is the film, like this is what I want. And having this deadline with ADOC was great because I could have tinkered with that forever, but I didn't, and I'm very grateful for that because I think like more than anything, I'm just happy to have a final something like final that I get to look back on from that period of time.
Yeah, that's really beautiful reflection. I think it's also something that I think the microdocs format really offers an opportunity to experiment and also like So yeah, it's kind of like homework in a way that you have to finish, even though that it's in a creative way. I do want to switch gear a little bit because at ADOC we, talk a lot and also think a lot about building impact around films and also create, hopefully using films as a tool to create social changes. Did any of you ever thought about impact when you're making your film? If so, in what way do they show up in your process? And if not, how does impact play a role in your current work? If you can speak to that. And also, this is a question that's open to everyone, anyone who wants to jump in as well.
Well, I'll just say that, of course, with this little short film, I didn't really have any impact plan because I didn't think it would necessarily go anywhere. I do want to say that it's really great that ADOC has continued this series where they have these many, many microdocs now, and they have shown them on World Channel and gotten them into film festivals and so forth. And that's really a nice thing to kind of help out filmmakers, right? And help to build their profile as a collective, right? As the ADOC as a collective. So that's really fun. I love that there's like really immediate and real world support for filmmakers from ADOC in that way. So, not only do they live online, but they go out into other venues and they're getting screened elsewhere as well. Mhm.
Yeah, I think impact is always an interesting topic for me because I feel like for a while with other films I was maybe working on, like I felt this not stress, but sort of like the emphasis of impact. Like you want a film to really make impact. And I think that earlier on in my career, that was always in my mind. And I think once I started to make my own films, and I was also seeing from other like productions I was on, um I found that my role I think I've figured out for myself I think I'm really comfortable in this role as a filmmaker, and I want to figure out then like who are the people who can then be the organizers. Like I know I'm not an organizer, right? And I know I'm not the most like the savviest with like putting my film out there, whatever it may be, right? So I really with the microdoc, I trusted that the communities I was working with or the people who were most invested in this story would help me find a way to have it shared, and spread it as far as possible. But I wasn't like as concerned with it. And I think actually what I was like really focused on is like what does my role as a filmmaker like in this one specific role, like as a in production, whatever it may be, like how am I making an like impact with these relationships? How am I like learning and like implementing these principles I have that are the political principles that guide me? Because that really matters, I think, ultimately in like this position you're in as a filmmaker. And I trust that the film then like finds a life of its own. And also, I mean, it was really, really special for the film to have then um traveled and and had the support of ADOC. So then that way there was this other layer of impact that was just not inherently built in because of the community it was reaching through ADOC. Like that was really meaningful.
Yeah, Priyanka, do you have anything about impact that you want to share?
Yeah, I think like Valerie said, like for this microdoc in particular, I don't think impact was like a big thought in my head at that point. Also because I think although there was some talk around impact, like it was the during the pandemic time, there was not much happening in person. But since then, I think I do like right now, currently, I do think about impact a lot. In fact, I think for me, like community screenings, like more than film festivals and things like that, like community screenings is what truly drives me. I think I feel most rewarded when the communities who the film is made for watch the film and the communities feel well represented. Because, I do want to bring a sense of belonging. And I think like that's also something I strive to do with with impact. And I think so one other way, and probably I don't know if like maybe Valerie can speak to this as well, but for one of my other projects, my recent short that we released, it was actually the short was adapted from a feature length film in production. And what was able to happen was, we're now using this film to do like a lot of community screenings, because firstly, feature length takes a while to get out. And this film is about immigration, so it's a very crucial topic. So we're able to start like very crucial conversations with the communities. So it's allowing us to start that dialogue, allowing us to build community around the film. So I think like it's in sometimes like maybe if somebody's thinking of a microdoc, more than a proof of concept, like, because I think with the sample, you're just like trying to put together a rough cut. Like with this, with the microdoc, I think there's a tendency to like you actually finish the film. So I think that sort of like is very helpful when you're trying to like take this out. Like there's an opportunity for you to like show it to your audience, and then it kind of helps you think maybe that then sparks off like a longer film, or you're taking a longer film and cutting it short. So there's all kinds of ways to think about the film as a resource and to kind of like use this shorter form in your impact itself.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'm hearing different pieces how impact played a role, even though I think Ada also played a role in creating impact or being a part of the impact for these films. I think like Valerie, you were talking about like filmmakers creating impacts within the filmmaking community through the opportunity of making microdocs. And I think Sonia, you're talking about like trusting the community and making films that's honest to your film participants. And really empowered them to use the film as they wish. And I think Priyanka, you're creatively using microdocs as a format to generate audiences and also viewership for a longer project that's going to take years to make. So I think I really appreciate you all sharing that pieces of impact that you are taking from the microdocs project that you did and be part of your current work. So thank you for sharing that. I think just to wrap us up for today's conversation, I would love to just know more about how your microdoc experience impacted and influenced the work you do today and where you are with your filmmaking journey now. Maybe Valerie, since you had a very exciting project that just released, can talk about it first.
Sure, that's really a great idea because so this little film and then another short that I made around the same time about the same topic, which is the Auntie Sewing Squad, is now a feature film that is being, playing around film festivals and so forth. It's it got premiered in May of 2026, and I think that I would not have necessarily had the motivation to make this film without having started with the little short because it sort of made me think, oh, this is a really interesting story that I think could be expanded. So it's nice to see how that was a little kernel of the longer piece. That doesn't often happen with a lot of short films that I make. I think almost never. But it worked out this time, and I'm really happy that I was able to, like I said, back then in 2020, we were also a lot of crazy going out of our minds trying to deal with the pandemic. It was just nice to have something to focus on that was like a little bit more grounded and about my practice. So yeah, I'm not saying that I would have stopped making films if I hadn't made that film, but it certainly helped me keep making them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and it's really nice to see that a small project like that, and then it's like you plant a seed and it grows into a tree. So it's really beautiful to see the future comes together in that way. Priyanka, Sonia, how about you? How about you? How did microdocs play a role in your filmmaking journey? So, maybe Sonia, you want to share first?
Yeah, I think what it gave me was I think like a newfound sense of confidence in myself because I think we all run up against this issue with documentary where documentaries take a lot of time and it's also everything is so start and stop, and that can be really tough at times, right? Like I think I was at a point working on like many projects, like thinking like, oh yeah, well this one will, I'll finish this if this works out, or I'll start doing this if this works out. And like, I think it was really nice to just find a story and finish a project that I was proud of in a number of ways. And then it gave me that like Valerie's describing it, like it gives you a boost. Like you're like, okay, I think I could have I think I would still get to the place I wanted to, like, now, whatever. But at the same time, it just provided that sense of like, oh, I am able to make something that feels aligned with my vision, right? And that's what's fun, and that's also what makes this distinction between a microdoc and maybe a sample of something, right? Like there's so much that you're rounding out in a microdoc. You're thinking about music, you're thinking about tone, you're thinking like of like a little mini arc, like you're trying your best to make it feel like the essence you want from it, right? And I think exercising that and making something that really felt aligned with what I had envisioned from the beginning just further I don't know, I think it just instilled a bit of like self-assuredness that I was like, okay, I do maybe know what I'm trying to achieve. And I think now at this point I'm working on another project right now, a short, longer. It's like, maybe 15 minutes, so it's a short still, but definitely longer than 3. And it's with kids, and I think that experience of working with Rosie, understanding a little bit about yeah, like what I was, just the principles that I was like moving through, it showed me how to then move into new projects, and I hope that continues for the rest of my work.
Yeah, I echo so much with what I mean, agree with so much of what Valerie and Sonia, both of them said, because, and I think especially for me, because I was sort of like, I graduated, like I was brand new in the country. I had no community. So I sort of, I'd done this before. I'd done filmmaking back in India, but right, it's just, it just, I was feeling very stuck. So I think what this did was it quickly gave me that sense of like being able to just like go out into the community. Like I live in Fremont, so although it was very local, so just like going out, interacting with people, getting access, winning somebody's trust, being able to tell that story, I think gave me like a lot of confidence. Again, yeah, maybe I would have still gotten where I am, but I think it was like a very crucial thing that came at the right time in my career. And then I had like some time, wherein because of COVID, my work authorization was getting delayed. So I ended up like starting a YouTube channel because I was so inspired by the microdoc format. And I ended up like doing a lot of microdocs, like about 10 or 12 microdocs for my YouTube channel. So yeah, and a lot of the work that I do today, like the first microdoc I did, and then the YouTube channel that I started, I think that's from where a lot of my work comes because a lot of stories that I started, like a lot of the subjects I was interacting with, those are the stories that kind of like led to longer length films. And more than anything, I think it gave me that discipline of like getting a story out. It just gave me that confidence and just I think I was just like exercising or practicing that muscle in my body of putting your story out there, like feeling confident enough to put your film out there. So the microdoc and then eventually the YouTube microdocs I did. So that's what they did for me.
Yeah, thank you. And I am also appreciate that you all are finding ways to make that experience of making microdocs part of your own work now. We have a question in the chat about the challenges you face when you're telling the story. This kind of short format is so challenging in terms of telling a story. Did you all have longer cuts that you cut down from? What kind of challenges did you have in edit? Feel free to jump in if anyone feels up for it.
I think I actually did the opposite, if I'm remembering correctly. I think I just had less, and that was bad. Like that was hard because I just had like maybe one or two strong back and forths between Rosie and Lisa, and I might have shared that I have a feeling that's what I shared with the ADOC team at first, and I was like, I know this is not working. And so I felt like actually starting with as little as possible, maybe like from a verite scene or whatever, and then being like, okay, and then thinking through like what is the least amount, like just kind of like working incrementally might help. And I also think the problem that I faced, which I don't know if this happened to you. This is something you both felt, Valerie, Priyanka, but I was worried about it feeling promotional or like commercial. Like, because that's what we're sort of attuned to now is like that short length is vaguely promotional or like turns into like an advertisement for something. And so I just kept trying to figure out like what makes me feel like this feels like a documentary. Like what are the things that I actually like affiliate with documentary and that was like helpful also then at that stage of like having very bare bones and then being like, okay, what's a little bit that I can add? I'm like, okay, a little bit of archival and then like what's a little bit more? And I'm like, maybe like this line about this, whatever. And so I guess that would be my recommendation is maybe just start with like one really strong small verite scene and then see what else you need to build on it. I don't know if what you guys, Valerie, Priyanka, what you all think.
Well, like I mentioned before, my film was written as a short, so I didn't have any longer piece to cut down from. And I did expand it eventually, but so I think that for me, it was like a little way of um, testing the waters, like in some ways, to see if this was even a viable subject. And it seemed to be well received, so that I felt like I moved on to something longer at that point. Mhm.
I think I ended up spending so much time in pre-production that I had to do my production and post-production very quickly, sometimes, which is a blessing because you're not, again, like you kind of have to then be very disciplined because you have to do your time management well. So, and I guess like, when you're doing any format of any length of film, I guess you're always like, oh, I wish I could add a little bit. I wish I could like extend the scene a little bit more. I mean, as a filmmaker, you're always in love with your material, and you feel that. Um, but in the end, I think like sometimes these challenges are like a blessing in disguise because it forces you to kind of like pick like the best material. And and of course like the ADOC team, Sarita was our supervising producer, so I think there's a lot of work that went in like in terms of back and forth, getting feedback on cuts. I mean, I think Pallavi, Sarita, all of them were watching cuts and giving us feedback, so that was very helpful to kind of like get outside reactions as well. So yeah, so all that was helpful, but I don't think my initial cut was that much longer. I mean, maybe a few minutes, maybe it was a 5-minute cut that we were like fine tuning to bring it down to 3 minutes. But yeah, I think like because of doing good pre-production and thinking about it like very intentionally, we were successful in kind of like with the post-production, it wasn't as challenging.
Thank you. We have another question about around distribution, and I also want to build on that, and expand about where did you see yourself? Did you submit your films to film festival? Where did the film meet its audience? Are there any screenings or just showing opportunities that you felt like were unexpected and sort of met the goals that you set out to make the film for? Where did the film find its audience? Was it film screenings or at community events or any other places?
Yeah, so we had our shorts block, like the 2024 Microdocs series. I think it was at Cam Fest. I'm not gonna remember all of them to be honest. I think it was Cam. I think it was New Orleans, if I'm thinking right. I think it was the Asian American International Festival in Philly, maybe. Yeah.
In
Um,
in New York.
Yes, yes, and yes, exactly. And in New York. And then I think the festival in LA, the video, not video consortium, the what am I thinking of? My West Coast people, what am I thinking of?
LA, you mean LA Asian? No,
Yes, yeah, that's right. Or no, no, no. The can't
yeah,
remember.
I can jump in. I think because I worked on the series in 2024. In that series, we thought strategically about where we're showcasing all these films. So we actually had an impact producer involved in the series very early on to think about the series as a whole, where we're premiering the series, how are we building conversations around the series because it's about civic engagement and we want as many people seeing the film as possible. So Sonia's film not only played at film festival, at CanFest, at New Orleans through the partnership that we built with the festival, we also were bringing those films into conferences. We show
Mhm.
all the films at Netroots, and at that year, because it was an election year, we actually showed it through APIA vote at their kind of building up to election event over there. And I think individually, each filmmaker also take their film and push it into community screenings. I think Sonia was trying to do some workshops with kids in New York, and another filmmaker, Chitra, she was empowering her participants to show the films in the library. So I think it's a two step process that we built into the series, and we did a lot actually from the initiative team to help filmmakers push their impact goals.
Mhm.
But I don't know if Valerie and Priyanka, will you ever play your films elsewhere outside of festivals that were sort of engaging and connect with the audiences so that way? It's okay if you, you didn't.
I mean, I think I'm not sure, but I think like the Microdoc series was probably on World Channel. I'm not sure like what the distribution was from, like, but the YouTube was also like pretty impactful, and I think especially like within the local, like because we couldn't have gatherings, like the local Sikh community sharing the work because I was sort of like going into the Sikh temple regularly, so even like that little impact was, something that felt great. Obviously because it was based on the Sikh community. Like a lot of the community members, I think, ended up watching the film online.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point about releasing the film on YouTube, right? That more people can easily access it. There's a question in the chat about, the form on Microdocs. Did the form help you develop longer projects in terms of gaining resources, momentum, and also applying for grants and funding? On the other side, is there any disadvantage of releasing a project at such an early stage? I think Priyanka, Valerie, you both have experience using it for longer project. What was your experience with that?
I mean, I think it's always good to have a good work sample that shows that you are what kind of themes and topics you're interested in talking about, and what style you're going to be possibly using. Um, it might not necessarily carry over to the longer project, but at least it's a clearer way for people to understand what it is that your subject matter is and how how you are approaching it. So I think, yeah, of course, it's always good to have something rather than nothing. I see there's a second part of the disadvantage. Um, for me, I don't think so because it was its own piece. It wasn't like I think all of us have said it's really not like, it wasn't like an excerpt that we were making. They were really complete pieces. So they really had like an arc, right? And they stand alone. And I think that that's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel similarly where I'm just like it was a nice exercise of being like, oh, I want a full piece, right? And I think that it's only helped me express like, oh, okay, like these are the things that I've played with here. If I'm making a new project like that I want to incorporate more archival, I can say, okay, this is how I've used it in the past. Or like that's another way I think if you're interested in making a microdoc, you can think about like what are those skill sets that you sort of want to so you sort of want to like show people you know how to do, but maybe you don't have that in your portfolio yet. I can see a microdoc being the perfect place to show that and be like, okay, like I've played with it here. This is what it would feel like if it was in a full film. Now imagine 90 minutes, like it's just a nice way to to focus in on something you maybe haven't had to do before.
I think in terms of like using shorter form, like I haven't like for the recent project that I was talking about wasn't a microdoc. It was a short film that was adapted from a long feature project. But like Valerie said, it's not an excerpt. It is a film. It's a standalone piece by itself. While I may use some material from there going into the feature, like but it's a full film in itself. And I think that's why, and I don't think there's anything to like, because it's not an early stage. Like, when you're working on a microdoc, like you've truly like thought through your story arc for that microdoc or your short film, and then you're doing music, you're doing color correction. So I don't think there's it doesn't it's not like taking some footage and releasing it out there, right? So it's not like putting it out in early stages. There's so much thought and work that goes into it that I think I don't see any disadvantages to putting your work out there. It's really helpful in trying to see what kinds of reactions you're getting from people, especially as you're expanding your work. How is the community reacting to it? So, is there something more that you want to take from there, something less you want to do from there? So, I think it's very, very, I mean, I only see advantages.
Can I also add something? I've worked before as a programmer, and I'm thinking also like the position I've been in before, where you have a really strong shorts block, but maybe you need to fill time. And it's like, oh wow, I only have 3 to 5 minutes. Like, how do I find a film? Like, are there films to do? And a lot of us, I love making short films. It's my favorite form. But I also like I usually land in like the 15-minute area, and a lot of times from a programmer's perspective, it's like that's great, but you actually only have room for maybe 3 or 4 of those. And so there's always like I think strategically, there's always a need for a really strong, like well thought out shorter piece. Like I always think that there's room for it. And so if you feel like and that on its own, like that says so much about your excuse me, your ability as a filmmaker, if you can really, um, execute something, a story, and put people on a journey in just that short amount of time, whether that's like 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Um, we're running out of time, so there's one last question from the chat. It's about consent and building relationship with participant. What is your process of winning people's trust for filming? And additionally, how, like the microdocs format, did that impact how you approach people about filming, or is it the same? Yeah. I think Sonia, you had a relationship with kids, like how that play into your role of building a relationship and trust with people.
Yeah, I think I touched on this a little bit before, but it was really because it wasn't relationships I really had before. I was just trying to just being as transparent as possible and being like, this is what I imagine the film to be. Here's the timeline I'm working with. Like, I just really believe in transparency, especially with something like this, like, especially with something where I'm like, I'm gonna be done in 2 months. Like, I wanted to make sure everyone was okay with that. And so just really communicating the steps of it and communicating it at every stage. And then, the filming itself, because we had just met in person, I was like, okay, well, I want you to kind of just like have the camera. So I like gave Rosie, I don't know if this works for everyone, but this is my individual experience, was giving Rosie she was 10 at the time, like giving her my camera and being like, okay, so this is what I'm doing. Like when you see the lens move like this, it's because I'm zooming in. And when you see me doing something with this little pocket, it's just because it's my audio. And like then she got to film her mom, and then instead of me interviewing them and putting her kind of on the hot seat, I had her and her mom interview each other. And so then that automatically, as much as I could, just like melt into the environment. So that way, it felt more like there's just more at ease, and they understood going in like what I was even doing in the first place. So you can't force people to trust you, and you will always feel has like reluctance. You will always know if it's not working, right? And so you have to also be really like on the same page with people. And it takes time. Like even this, I felt really lucky, but there's projects I'm working on now that it's taken years, to really show that I have this specific lens and like these are my intentions. And so you really do have to follow your intuition with the relationship itself.
Yeah, Priyanka and Valerie, do you have anything you want to share about your process of gaining trust? And I think Valerie, maybe for you, it's more about how do you ask people to even allow you to use the materials they film, right? Like that's a trust building process itself
I think
too.
you just have to allow a lot of time for it. You can't really rush it, because people can tell if you're not being like sincere about representing them, in a fair way, because they're kind of collaborating with them in a way. They're like your collaborators. So I think that as long as you are understanding that you are working with them and respecting them, that's the thing you want to. That's the relationship you want to have with them.
I agree with everything that Valerie and Sonia said. Time is of the essence. And one of the reasons, like, we were very, like, when I say we, like, in my conversations with Sarita and Pallavi too, uh, the one thing we were trying to do was find the right character for the film, right? Find the right subject for the film. Um, because it was also COVID time, obviously we wanted to, it was this character driven story. So we wanted to get as intimate as, we possibly could, like being mindful of, making sure that nobody's falling ill or any of that. But, sometimes it didn't work out because it wasn't possible to go film at people's houses, even though maybe they were great characters and things like that, right? Um, so, and again, like I was also very lucky that Raj, my protagonist for the film, was very willing, was very welcoming. And again, like, this is something you can't force. You just build that relationship and you have to be very respectful. Like, even when somebody says no, I think you have to be very respectful of that no as well. And you kind of like keep working and you will find the right angle and the right way to film.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing that. And we're unfortunately at time for our session today. Thank you again, Valerie, Priyanka, Sonia, for, the great conversation, discussion, and thoughts that you bring into the panel today. And thank you all for the audience who are joining us today. Without you, we wouldn't be able to build community together. We have one more educational series as part of ADOC Activates, focusing on digital shorts cut down, which is on July 29th. And Melody is going to drop the link to register for the last session in the chat. If you find today's session helpful and are interested in applying to our upcoming open calls, please join us for the last educational series session. And please stay tuned for more information on our Activates open calls through our newsletter and Slack announcements as well. Thank you all for joining us today and have a good rest of your day.